Okay, I'm going to call this meeting to order. It's 8:32.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going by what that says up there.
Yeah, no, I was using the computer.
Okay. And then we are in compliance with the open meetings law, and she has the current meeting notice that's attached to that.
Okay.
So we will do the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Okay. And then we have the meeting minutes that are attached on here. Has everybody had a chance to review those?
I have.
Okay.
I guess since I'll make a motion to approve the minutes, the March minutes as distributed. And I will second that.
Okay, so those are approved.
Yeah, I'm gonna take a vote.
Pardon?
We should vote on that. All in favor?
Okay, roll call vote or
No,
no,
just
just do
voice
the aye.
vote.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll take a vote on that. If you're for that, aye.
Aye.
Any nays? No, everybody has approved that. Okay, then we will move on to the election of a chairperson for this committee. Do I have any nominees?
I nominate Mr. Bruce Wilson.
I second that.
You don't have to second it now. Are there any other nominees?
And make a motion to close the nominating thing.
Okay,
That has to be seconded. I think he makes a motion to close it and then go unanimous consent. That has to be seconded,
okay.
I think.
I believe you're right.
I second.
Okay, Mr. Paulson is your chair. We'll turn it over to him.
Okay, all right. Can we see, Mr. Helwig's on, right?
Yes.
Can we see him? No, maybe over there?
There's Mark.
Okay, good. All right. So the next order of business on election of the vice chairman. I'd entertain motions to nominate the vice chairman. I don't know if I can, but I'm going to nominate Mr. Buckles. Do you need a second?
No,
No, okay. All right. Just do we want to close the nomination? No, I don't think so. I'll make a motion to close nominations for vice chair. You need a second?
I second.
Okay. All in favor of closing nominations, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carried. Okay, Mr. Buckles, you're the vice chair.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Now, at this time, we'll turn the meeting open to public comments. If you've got a comment for something that's not on the agenda, we'll hear you at this time.
You need a haircut, Bruce.
Yeah, my wife says I got a cat growing on my head. Okay. All right, no public comments. Moving on. Chairperson's remarks, I guess. Thank you. Events and discussions, do we have any?
No.
Okay. Sawyer County treasurers, we don't have any foreclosures or anything from the treasurer?
No.
Okay. Land record?
Yeah, this is Dan Pluger. I'm here.
All right, Dan, any comments?
Just that I guess we've got people working from home, and a couple of us are here just about every day, getting things done. Our tax listing is caught up to May 11th, which I guess was 2 days ago. So we're right in line with that. Fire numbers are getting done. Survey crew's been working down in town of Meteor mostly and Coudray. We had a contractor I had grant money to do contract surveying work, and we had him do a project, Hagemeister Lake in the town of Winter, where the forestry department has some timber sales to set up for next winter. And he gave me the word that he's got all the field work done for that. And the only other thing we had going was air photo flight, and that got finished up last week before the leaves came on. So that's taken care of for the next 5 or 10 years.
Dan, you
That's
want
it. Unless I
to,
could.
for the new member and the new old member, you want to elaborate on what the air photo is?
Sure. We it's been every 10 years or so. They fly the county. The aerial photography is countywide, and it's all stitched together. And we use that for things every day. All our maps are laid out over it. All our zoning layers, everything that goes on the county website. That air photo all runs in the background. It's all ortho-rectified, so everything. They're foot pixels. They're 6-inch now, so I mean you can see roof vents on houses, and we do that every so many years. Usually it's about 8 or 10 years. This year we had the opportunity to get in on a statewide flight. Saved us a bunch of money, and it's 5 years instead of 10, but we saved a bunch of money doing it now. Covered it all with grant money that we had.
Perfect.
Good.
How is working from home going for your staff?
It works real well for like the GIS staff can do everything, the property lister. I can't do, like if I try and work from home, I can't, my internet's too slow at home and I can't get into my CAD drawings and be productive. Most of my stuff I end up coming here to do computer work, and a lot of the records that we have are still in old paper form, book form. I just need to get at them to do anything. But other than that, I mean, we're not here every day. I'm probably here 2 or 3 days a week, part of the day, and the rest of the time we're working in the field.
Okay. How about the public? Are you able to serve the public?
I believe we are. It's mostly phone calls. There's been very little traffic in the courthouse. If one of the local surveyors or somebody's got a question, I meet them, let them in the office, and we talk about it, or just deliver materials to them, drop it in the hallway, or send it to them in the mail. Haven't had any complaints. I think between phone calls and email, we're getting most things done.
Okay. Any questions for Dan?
I'm just wondering with the overflight stuff, and you said it's all covered by grants, so I guess it's not a big deal. I just thought with today's technology and our satellite imagery that you can get for a small fee. I mean, I have an app called Contact Hunts. I pay $90 a year, and I get satellite imagery of every state. I can also see rooftops, and I pay $99 a year. So I just don't know if that's something in the future as our technology improves and we have such good satellite imagery nowadays. If that might be a factor in the future to save some costs. But if it's covered by grants, it may be a
Right. Dan, you have a comment?
Yeah, I didn't hear that real well, but the satellite imagery that we get our hands on isn't that good. I'm sure there's stuff out there, but most of the satellite imagery that we get isn't real good. The stuff taken out of an airplane is a lot lower and better resolution, and it costs us some money, but we can pay for it out of state grant money. So at this time anyway, that's the best I can see that we can get.
Good. Thanks. Any more questions or comments for Dan?
No.
Okay. Let's move on to County Forester then. Greg, you there?
Yep, I'm here.
All right.
Yeah, we had our timber sale bid on Friday. We had offered 23 tracts and we sold 19 out of 23. All of the high bidders are known contractors that we've worked with in the past, no issues. So I would recommend we approve the high bidders on each tract.
Hey, I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman, to approve the high bidders on those tracks.
Do a second?
Second,
Okay, good. Thanks. Mark? All right.
yes.
Any discussion? Greg, I had some questions. How is pricing holding up for value?
if you look at the summary sheet that I provided, we had a little bit of a dip on some of our key products. The one I really look at a lot is Aspen, which is about half of our volume on cordage on this sale, and we had a 3% dip in price from last year. So considering the conditions that we're dealing with right now, I think that's pretty good. Some of the other ones we've had some big dips, but they're smaller volumes. But our red pine came up. That's our other key market this spring right now. But overall, for what we offered and the conditions that we're dealing with, I think we had a pretty solid bid opening. We cleared just over $1 million on this spring bid, which is, I was looking for $1 million, which is kind of our target each one. So it's looking, I think, pretty fair. I think we're going to be on target here. The 4 sales that we didn't sell were primarily log sales and 1 white pine pulp sale, which those markets were kind of sliding already coming into the spring. So it's overall, I think we're doing pretty well.
Good, okay. Any more discussion on the motion? Okay, all in favor of the motion to approve the spring 2020 bidding results? Aye?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, motion carried. Greg, you want to take us through the letter from the WCFA?
Yeah, this was a letter from the Great Lakes Timber Professional Association that they submitted to our County Forest Association, which I kind of expected was going to come with the outbreak and everything. This is the big professional organization for all our contractors, and they're asking for some changes due to the situation. The big one, which will probably be coming, is the extensions without increase. The other issues on there, the bonds, the performance bonds, I can't see reducing them. They're not. They're really not high enough the way it is. The other things, the minimums on our bids, we already do a per sale minimum. We don't do per product, so we give them some leverage there. But primarily, I would expect to see some requests for extensions without increase, which we have occasionally the way it is. But at this point, I'm not getting any requests directly from our contractors. It's just this letter from the association. So I'm not sure what's going to happen, in the next few months. Most of our extensions had a May deadline, so we already sent them out when this letter was coming out. So we might be looking at some requests coming in November, December, when our next round of extensions come up.
Okay, so you'll address that when you get a request, and this would be a policy change, wouldn't it?
Yep, this would be a policy change, for our extension on the sales. And I think right now, maybe we just wait and see what we get in from our local contractors before I would do any kind of blanket changes off of this request.
All right. Anybody have any questions? Go ahead. Mr. Schulman has a question.
Greg, this is Tweed. How long do we expect these extensions to be? And hopefully not going into the next year. Is that correct?
Well, right. We do extensions normally. We do 4 extensions on each sale. That's our standard right now. In what we do, the first year extension they get with no increase. For the second year, would be the third year of the contract, to do a 10% and then a 15% for the 4th and final year. So it's we already extend them, but basically they're just asking for they want 1 free extension is what they're going to ask for at this point. So I would expect we're still going to have the same level of harvesting, I hope, but it's just a matter of whether or not they get a 10% or a 15% increase on their price.
Craig, you want to explain why loggers won't cut when they're supposed to?
Well, it's all market driven at this point. You know, they have contracts that they try to fulfill, and the mills sometimes give them a hard time with what they're supposed to be producing, what they're guaranteed, so to speak. Like I said, and there is a deal of speculation on some of these bids. You know, they might bid, you know, some of the bids we got in on this spring bids opening, they might be looking at the price going up. So generally they have a 4-year window, you know, to cut a timber sale. You know, preferably they do it in the first 2 years, and that's what they have to cut without the increase. So it's all market and weather driven, you know, whether they get the sales done within the contract time periods. But once we get past 4 years, we take the sales back. We take a bond, we re-advertise. So we're covered on that. It's always a question of, you know, when we're going to get the sale cut, when we're going to get the money in on it.
Okay. Any questions for Greg on that?
No.
Okay. Recreational trails report, motorized. I see we have a motorized man here.
Yes, sir. Know me, I'm Don Rotek. I'm trail coordinator for the Springer County Snowmobile ATV Alliance. Our Snowy Trails opened up on May 8th for ATVs, and the Schwamigan National Forest also opened up May 8th. Before that, the Tuscobia Trail was open, and the LCO Trail were open. There's been a fair amount of traffic out there on the trails and even on the road routes. The road routes were also open before that. So people have been getting out there. The governor's stay-at-home order doesn't affect so much the trails. The governor does want people out there in the woods and enjoying things, biking, motorized, water and all that stuff. So it is good for our economy to have people out there. Unfortunately, the businesses aren't open to cater to them.
Right.
For that. But otherwise, things are going very well with that side.
Any questions for Mr. Mirotek?
I have one.
Go ahead.
Don, say down in my area, I see a few of the ATV route signs are laying in the ditch. Especially down there, there's one on Dansman and Hoffman Road, that's just up my road. I know they had to put it on there with zip ties, but with all that wind, I think it got cut.
Okay.
I mean, I'd be willing to go up there and put it back on if they want me to. I mean, I'm right there.
Well, that'd be great if you're.
Okay, I just wanted to let you know that
Yes.
they are down.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll
We
take care of
appreciate
that
any
for
help
you.
we can get, yes.
All right.
Go ahead.
Don, how about those ag fields around the casino where those snowmobile trails run through there?
Yes.
Sometimes there's signs and things left out in the field. I know some farmers that go in there and are trying to get the field ready. I noticed a sign just the other day behind Jump River Plaza there.
Okay.
There's a snowmobile, something on the middle there. The marking, that was marking that snowmobile trail. So if we could just remind folks to get those.
Yep.
Maybe they just overlooked that.
That needs to work, and actually at Trail 77 from the casino down to Tuscobia needs a lot of signs. A lot of our road signs need to be replaced, and the trail signs and everything else up there. So yes, we need to do a work day and get on that trail.
All right. Any more questions for Mr. Mirotek? Okay. Greg, do you want to give us an update on the 15-year forestry and what? It's a 10-year rec plan?
A 5-year rec plan.
Okay.
Yeah, we're, I presented at our last committee meeting a schedule
Right.
of the chapters and everything that we're going to do, but we're a little bit off, considering what's going on. But in the meantime, I've been going through as much of the information as I possibly can, getting everything ready to go, writing up as many of the chapter items as I can, without working through the stakeholder group or the committee at this time. So what's likely going to happen is, we'll probably have we're going to have a little bit more of a compressed approval for the committee and county board on it. But hoping, once we can get back to in-person meetings, we'll have a pile of information for the stakeholder group to work through and get kicked out to the committee. So while there's nothing coming through this month, I can assure you that I've been spending a lot of time writing up as much of this as I can, given the conditions that we have right now. So
Are you
hopefully
working,
next month. Yep.
are you working with the vice chair on the rec plan too?
Yep. That I've been emailing back and forth with Ed a little bit. So we're just trying to get as much groundwork laid as we can, so we can crank through an approval, once this situation passes here.
Okay. Do you want to update the new committee members on what the 15-year plan and the outdoor rec plan is?
Okay. The county forest is required by the state to have a comprehensive land use plan, which basically outlines all of our policies and procedures for county forests. So the 15-year plan, it covers everything we do, all of our policies and everything. So, we've got nine big chapters of our administration and everything like that. So it's basically just our all-encompassing plan that provides our guidance on the policies as situations come up. And it is required by the state for a variety of reasons. It's statutorily required, and also so we're eligible for grants, with a number of things. The outdoor rec plan is a different plan, but it's somewhat connected. But that's a 5-year plan that is not required. But if we want to apply for a series of grants, stewardship grants, there's a whole string of grants that you can apply for on the rec side. The county has to have the outdoor rec plan in place, and that provides us with the ability for not just the county, but all the municipalities within the county, townships, village, city, to apply for rec projects. And ideally, you identify all the projects that you're looking at in the plan. You can make amendments, but the whole point of the rec plan is to identify the needs of the county overall for recreational projects for the next 5 years, so we can try to obtain grants to fund them.
These are on the website, these two plans?
Yep, it should be.
All right, thank you. All right, Greg, you want to lead us through the county forestry report?
Okay, so for April, we had 2 sales listed as active, which is about normal for our spring breakup. As we sit right now with the last bid opening, we have a little over $4 million of timber sale value sold and uncut on file. I can tell you that activity is starting to pick up right now. As conditions are drying out, we're getting a lot of contractors starting to move in. So for the time being, the market seems to be doing fairly well, considering what's going on. Sale revenue that we took in for March and April was just over $330,000. So our year-to-date revenue is $684,000. So we're about 40% of our budgeted revenue stream for the year. So I think we're in pretty good condition right now. And the bids we just got in, things are looking okay for us. We've got just under 170,000 sale revenue billed out right now. Sale inspections are on target for the level of activity we've had. Same as tract establishment. The guys have been hammering out the field work right now with the spring conditions, which is ideal. So we're moving along right there. Recon Acres is on target. We've also been working on the Good Neighbor Authority, which is the program that the state has undertook with the Federal Forest Service, where we set up a amount of timber for them as well. This is all reimbursed overtime for us, but we did about 100 hours of that the last 2 months. We're getting the projects done that we need to there. Nothing new to report on Oakville right now. As far as trails, as Don had mentioned, we did open up on Friday the 8th, which is a week earlier than we were scheduled to open, but the conditions were good enough that we did indeed open. We did work through public health on this as well for how we were going to handle the opening, the social distancing and everything like that. So they were on board and giving us guidance for how we would do this appropriately. Also, in April 15th was the deadline for our grant applications. And on the report there, you can see the list of the rehab grants, our normal maintenance grants that we applied for spring. And also we applied for the rehab projects, also through the recreational trails program as well. So we put in a fair amount of grant projects this season. So hopefully we get all that we applied for. The meeting for that is usually in July. Know if you were successful in your grants. Other than that, I don't have anything else to report at this time, other than, all staff right now is working from home. And aside from some minor inconveniences with paperwork and files, physically transferring them, it's been working pretty well for us, and I could say it's really hasn't impacted us at all. We're going along as normal, and it seems to be working pretty well.
Greg, you got a DNR forestry reporting on the computers?
Right.
Okay. Do the people working from home have access to that?
Yes, yeah. Our recon system is all web-based through the state. The foresters do have access to it from home computers. They have been coming in occasionally to do some of the more heavy paperwork lifting, on certain days. But as a whole, we've been able to do almost everything primarily from home.
Good, perfect. Any questions for Greg? Yes, go ahead, sir.
Hey, Greg, this is Jesse Betcher. I'm a new member. Just have a quick question here. On the chart, it says on November 1st, there was 894 acres sold for a price of $712,000, but you've only received 8,500, which is seems like a low amount. That's about 1.1 or 1.2% of the sale price. I guess I thought that the down payment or the bond amount had to be higher than 1.1%. Why is that so low?
That's low because we have a bond, we have a performance bond that we hold, and we don't count that towards the revenue. So that is held, and we hold that if we have damages or things like that. But what happens is when the sales go active, then we do have an advanced stumpage system where they have to pay ahead. So we have the bonds for the sales, but we don't count that as a received revenue because ideally we release the bonds and we don't have to claim off of those. Okay,
that makes perfect sense. What is the percentage of the bond normally?
We do 10%, a 10% performance bond, 10% of the sale value.
Okay, because I noticed in that letter from the GLTPA, they were asking to be reduced to 5%. We didn't discuss it for that.
No, not until if it's a policy change, okay, Greg will bring it back to it.
All right, thank you, Greg.
Any more questions for Greg?
I do, Mr.
Okay.
Some of the other board members do.
Okay.
Good, Ron? Yep. Okay, Greg, you stated that we're on target to reach the 2020 budgeted revenue amount. And you say that we're looking pretty good do you see that we could possibly come in over that? Because we've got other revenue streams within our budget that are not gonna make their targeted amount. So we've either gotta make that up somewhere, or we gotta cut some expenses, or we gotta do a referendum or something, just in 2020 to balance our budget. So I'm looking at Bruce, but I'm asking you, Greg, is there any way forestry or logging could come in higher than expected?
Well, it is possible, yes. You know, when we forecast, it's, you know, I always forecast conservative, you know, hoping that we do go over. Because this spring sale, you know, we're anticipating, you know, a price drop, and we had the opportunity, we pushed out a chunk more sales to hopefully to counter that. So we did try to sell a few more sales on this go around than we normally did. So, and the activity level we're seeing now and the prices that we saw come in, you know, I would say it's very possible. You know, if we have a good weather summer season, we could go over, and we're making everything, every concession we can make right now to get the revenue stream rolling as much as we can. We're looking at doing within reason.
Greg, you've got restrictions, don't you, by the DNR on how much timber you can cut?
Yeah, we have an allowable cut that we set each year. So, and we look at, we're about 3,500 acres across our different cover types. So, and really the way we sit right now, we're putting out about as much as we can, giving the staff we have and with the contractors we have available to us. So, if the market cooperates and weather cooperates, that's the real catch for us.
Okay, good. Did you have a question for Greg?
No.
Okay, I'm good. Any more questions for the forester?
Thank you, Greg.
Do we have a DNR forester report somewhere? Okay, hearing none. Zoning and conservation. Jay, are you there?
Yes, I am.
All right, you want to take over on 13A?
Sure. Yeah, so last February, which seems like an eternity ago now, we talked about a potential CAFO moratorium. Now, for those new members or those who haven't been following along the process, the CAFO moratorium is for a concentrated animal feeding operation. This would be for large-scale farming operations with over 1,000 animal units, with one animal unit equaling 1,000 pounds. So I was kind of tasked to, you know, potentially look into a moratorium where if Sawyer County wanted to kind of at least hold off for a while to potentially develop some of the state legislation as far as the livestock sighting ordinance and incorporate that into kind of a county or more of a local type of control. When we talked in February, we did approve that we wanted to proceed with a public hearing process on this. And then with the midst of COVID and the inability to hold large meetings, it got postponed, I'll say the word indefinitely, until a date decided here. Through discussions I've had with our legal counsel, there is kind of a preferred method to go, or a preferred route to go with this, and I just want to make that clarification. I also had put it here in the notes section, actually on the agenda, that this, you know, potential public hearing we would hold would still just be for feedback purposes on whether or not the county even takes the next step, which is actually passing an enabling ordinance as well as a moratorium process. So really we're looking for a public hearing for discussion. And if that moves through, then you still have another public hearing for the actual passing of which would be an enabling ordinance and the actual moratorium. With the process of enacting a moratorium, there needs to be specific findings as to why the county's passing the moratorium, specifically relating to health, safety, additional research that needs to be or wants to be done by the county in order to kind of forecast a longer term process and whether or not we want to potentially regulate CAFOs or not at that point. So it is on the agenda here for kind of discussion as well as action for this committee to determine when we want to hold that meeting. And again, it seems still like it's a moving target as to, can we hold large meetings, can we not? I would imagine that this type of public hearing meeting for the CAFO moratorium will bring in upwards of 50 people.
Yes, go ahead.
Jay,
Yes.
on this, I've already had in my area 3 big dairy farmers approach me, and they're really concerned about this. So I believe that they're gonna get all the big farmers they can to attend this. So
Right.
we're gonna need an area where they can attend because they're gonna be there.
Right.
I agree, yeah.
But it's a matter of, aren't we limited to the governor's order and when Ms. Lyons says we can hold these large meetings?
Yeah, and I think that's, a great discussion to have where, ultimately the discussion and action we have may be postponing this until we can hold larger types of meetings so we can get a true public hearing and a due process for the public to voice their opinions. I just don't see, a virtual meeting being the right avenue for this type of discussion.
Well, and I agree with you, and I
agree too.
certainly don't want the sheriff to come and arrest us because we violated the governor's rules. So I think we just wait on it. Isn't that the prudent thing to do?
I would think so. I just wanted to make sure that, it's still out there, we just haven't, dropped it. It's just, because of the pandemic and the safer at home and limited meeting participants that we are, having to, again, still postpone this to a date not determined.
Right. So you need a motion to that effect? Would that work?
That would make me feel good, yeah.
Okay. Well, anybody want to make that motion to postpone until we've gotten the clearance from the governor to hold large meetings?
I'll make that motion, but do we want to postpone or table?
Don't we?
Postpone?
I think that's the proper.
Okay, I'll make that motion to postpone this CFO public hearing until the governor lets us meet in large groups.
I will second that. All right, we've got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carried. Jay, other counties have established moratoriums, haven't they?
They have, yes. Burnett recently established one, I believe, last summer, and previously to that, I believe Bayfield and Douglas County have also worked through a moratorium process. They had basically cited specific legislation as far as there's always been that moving target on the state's livestock sighting ordinance, and those rules keep changing. So those counties kind of used that route, that they wanted to make sure what the state legislation was going to be before they could potentially mirror their own county ordinances.
Right. So in terms of, we could learn from what the other counties have done to establish the reasons and so forth for a moratorium.
Correct. Yeah. It just needs to be specific. If we do go that route, it needs to be, included in the actual motions and documented very properly.
Okay, good. Any more questions on the CAFOs? All right, you want to lead us through the county zoning report?
Yeah, and I just included some of the permit figures for not only March, but April. January, February, March was a little bit slower than recent years, nothing too drastic. But April is, the important month I want to kind of hit on here. And we are busier this April than we were previous year, which was also busier than the previous, which was also busier than the previous. So I was actually anticipating, when the stock market had crashed early March there, that, oh boy, we're going to be in some trouble for, meeting budgets with zoning, because a lot of people would be holding off on those major projects, whether it's additions or garages or new houses. And it almost seems to be somewhat the opposite in that people are, being stuck at home are actually finally pulling the trigger on those larger projects they may have been procrastinating for the last several years. So they actually had a busier April than last year, which again was busier than previous years, and had an additional $4,000 in revenue just for the month of April. Speaking on behalf of what other departments have done and stuff, we started off on a rotating in-office schedule, and as of 2 weeks ago now, we've had to bring all staff members back in office just to basically handle the additional workload we have. I mean, I've been on the meeting here today, and I've had 4 different phone calls, and I've seen the email pop up about 6 different times. So there's plenty of different people at least looking for the right answers from zoning as far as what they can do for permitting process. So we are doing the social distancing closed to the general public, but all hands on deck in office as of this point.
Okay, that answers my first question. My second question is from a budget perspective. Do you get a sense you're probably going to make your budget for the year given the volume you've got now?
If it continues like this, absolutely. But that's always hard to predict come fall. If the markets take another crash, if this whole pandemic thing comes back for a huge round 2 come fall, that's very hard to predict in the nature that we're in right now of this world. So also, depending on if there's a large commercial project, those, permit fees can certainly elevate a budget real quick. So those are always kind of hard to predict. But like I said, if April and May continue like they do, that'll be an easy one. So,
Jay, I understand that Quick Trip's going to build a big truck stop at the old grocery store. Has that come through?
Yeah, and that's actually within the city of Hayward. And so unfortunately, we don't get anything from that. Similar to other villages, Village of Radisson, Village of Winter, Village of Ojibwa, we don't get those permit fees. Those are separate municipalities that control their own zoning.
Well, that's what I thought. I just wanted to ask the question for everybody here. So, okay, is that it for you, Jay?
That's all I have, and I'd certainly answer any other questions that the new committee members may have.
Anybody have any questions for Jay?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I did have one other update here. We talked about the dam projects that we have, the Tiger Cat Dam project and the Carlson Dam project. Last winter, they were both at about 95% complete. They are now 100% complete. Both of those projects are now completely buttoned up. We are going to then start pursuing the reimbursement on some of those grants, with the DNR and their status on, what the DNR staff can do for inspections. They have asked to be patient on the final inspections by the DNR, which then can release the grant money. So I'll stay on top of it for sure, but it may be several months before we start seeing reimbursement on some of those still.
Perfect. Okay. Jay, do you know if we have a USDA report?
I do not. I don't believe we do.
Okay, how about LCO? Anybody LCO report?
Well, I guess I could report.
Okay.
Regarding LCOJ and our conservation department, we are planting our first crop of hemp this year, and we've kind of looked at 1 or 2 acre plot there by the Public Works Building and the Lac-Courte Police Department. In that big field, we've taken soil samples, and we've got we've ordered some seedling plants that we're going to put in there for the production of hemp oil. So that's, so Lac-Courte submitted their hemp plan to the USDA. They have it now, and they're looking at approving it. So we're just going to start slow and, as I said, start with a 1 acre plot, and with the plants for hemp oil. We've got a processor lined up that we'll have to transport this product to when it's ready to be harvested. We're looking at testing and everything to make sure it stays below the legal limit. That's always a concern. So I just wanted to make everyone aware that that's what they're planning for this summer.
Anything else? Any questions for?
Yeah, you probably have a lot of people out there that,
Yeah, right.
Okay. All right, any other topics for discussion? Under future topics, I'd like to add the trail fees resolution. We need to get that done too. Also, the silent sports people have made a commitment for a contribution to the Resource Development Fund. We should probably get an update on that too. The we there would be me. Okay. Any other matters to come before the committee? If not, we're adjourned.